You made me look like a fool, but these broken dreams must end. Hey woman, you're feeling blue because you have no one else to use. I pressed a button on the radio, switching to one of those late-night talk shows where they talk about encounters with Bigfoot or UFOs. I had heard this song several times in the last few hours and was fed up with it. Why, you ask? It's simple. She reminded me too much of the woman I left. Rather, he didn't leave, he ran away. I'll start from the beginning. My name is Stan Shipman, and I have been married to Lucy, formerly Lucy Dalton, for the last 5 years. We were high school sweethearts, and I thought we were soulmates. We got married right after high school. Yes, big mistake, I know. But we loved each other so much that we thought everything would work out. Oh, how wrong I was. Money was not a problem. I am a welder by profession. I have been doing this since childhood. My father was a welder and taught me everything I needed to know. I have been working with metals since I was old enough to safely hold a welder. As a young man, I always wanted to join my father on construction sites, but I couldn't. Union rules and insurance restrictions prevented it. But my father was engaged in manufacturing at home, and he always gave me work. It was a great experience, and I loved doing it. I went to welding school after high school, but quickly got bored because I already knew it all, so I took the tests and overwhelmed all the instructors. I received my certificate and immediately went to work. Since I already had a lot of experience and could do not only welding but also fabrication and installation, I was paid good money, especially when I had to travel to large projects in other states. I even did underwater welding and made a ton of money doing it. I made enough to put Lucy through college, and now she's working as a paralegal at some cool law firm downtown. So why am I running, and why am I now on the highway in the middle of the night? The answer to that question is the bipedal creature I married and her sinister friend. Oh yes, Lucy was all sweet and radiant when we were younger, but over time everything changes, and that's what happened. Don't get me wrong, I loved this woman and was more than happy to pay for her education. Her parents were convinced that I would have to go deeply into debt to do this, but they greatly underestimated me. They were as proud of me as they were of her the day she graduated from college. What's more, she graduated without a single dollar of student debt, thanks to me. But everything went wrong after she began working at the law firm McMaster and Fredericks. For the first couple of months, everything was fine. But as time went on, things only got worse. For starters, some of her female colleagues were quite frankly bad influences on her. Lucy began going with them to hen parties once a week, usually on Wednesdays. At first, I didn't mind because she usually got home early enough for us to spend the evening together, and I was often away at a work site working my ass off. But over time, it began to appear on Wednesdays and Fridays. What pissed me off was that Fridays used to be our date nights. When I reminded Lucy, she replied, "We can always go out on Saturday." I deserved that time with my friends. Then she started coming back later and later. It got to the point where she stayed outside until the early hours of Saturday morning. If I tried to call her to see if everything was okay, the call always went to voicemail. Finally, I couldn't stand it anymore and decided to talk to her about it. "We need to talk," I said one Saturday morning over coffee. "About what?" she asked. "About your Friday night parties," I said. "Friday used to be our night, but lately you've been coming home at almost 4 in on Saturday. What the hell is going on? I hardly see you anymore. The girls from the office and I like to relax with a couple of drinks," she said. "And sometimes we dance, that's all. I know clubs usually close by 1 a.m., I said, but you're there much later. What's going on? Are you seeing someone else?" "Of course not," she said with a heavy sigh. "If you really must know, sometimes we stop by for a bite to eat." "Yes, but until 4 a.m., I asked. "Sometimes," said Lucy. "Well, this shit needs to stop," I told her. "You have to make a choice. You're either my wife or their friend. They already see you more than I do. I didn't mind one night with the girls, but I feel like you're taking advantage of me." "Sorry," she said. "If you want, I'll stop going out with the girls on Fridays." "I think that would be a good idea," I said. "This way we can spend time together." She nodded in agreement and went to take a shower. I took a moment and took her phone from her purse, installing a phone tracking app so I could keep an eye on where she was. Part of me hated doing this, but I felt like I needed it, just for my own peace of mind. For the first few weeks, everything was fine. But then Lucy returned to her old habits and soon began going out on Wednesdays and Fridays. Again, I had to figure out what the hell was going on, So I fired up the tracking app and figured out where she was. After work that Friday, I cleaned myself up a little and then went to the club where she and her friends were hanging out. It wasn't so much a club as it was a bar with a DJ and a dance floor. I walked inside and immediately noticed her sitting at a table with a group of 4 women and 3 men. I noticed that Lucy was being a little too friendly with one guy who was sitting next to her. Too friendly, if you know what I mean. I also noticed that she was dressed much sexier than in the morning. They were completely unaware of my presence until I was right next to their table. Everyone except Lucy looked at me, and the guy next to her spoke. "What do you want?" he asked, acting like he was going to kick my ass. "I just got home from work and thought I'd have a beer," I said, causing Lucy to look in surprise. "So I walk into this bar and see what I found. Won't you introduce me to your friends?" Lucy looked around nervous. She was obviously embarrassed. "That's it," she said. "This is Stan. He's my husband," she added casually. "Stan, that's it." "Well, hello everyone," I said sarcastically. I noticed that she is not wearing a wedding or engagement ring. "Did you happen to forget anything?" She saw me looking at her left hand. "I took off the rings so I wouldn't lose them," she said. Nonsense, I thought to myself, but I decided not to insist. "I see," I said. The guy next to her stood up and stuck out his chest. He extended his hand and I took it. "Jake," he said. "Jake Rollins, Lucy and I work together." "A lot," he added with a grin. The others laughed, except Lucy. He squeezed my hand, trying to scare me and show me that he was in charge. He didn't succeed, so I squeezed his hand back, trying to crush his soft, effeminate hand. I saw that he was in pain, so I let him go. "I just wanted to ask your wife to dance, if you don't mind," he said, rubbing his arm. I looked at Lucy. "Is that true?" I asked her. She looked at me and nodded her head slowly. I thought this might be a chance to get a glimpse of what's really going on. So I nodded and gave him permission. "Okay," I said, "just watch where you put your hands. And know that this is my wife and I will watch over you." He nodded and Lucy stood up from her seat. After she stood up, I sat down in the seat that Jake had previously occupied and ordered myself a beer. Most of the others had already left. "You don't own it," the girl next to me said as I waited for the beer. "Who are you?" I asked. "Mary," she said. "Mary Compton. I mentor Lucy a little. Show her how things work, that sort of thing." "So Mary Compton," I said, mocking the way she and Jake introduced themselves. "Who are you to give me marriage advice?" "I'm Lucy's friend. And like I said, I mentor her," she said, taking a sip of her drink. "The partners love her work and have big plans for her." I didn't like her smug attitude and wondered what crap she was feeding Lucy. "Well, Mary," I said, "I never said I owned Lucy, but I am her husband. If something is interfering with our marriage, I should know about it." "The truth is, Stan, Lucy needs to broaden her horizons a little," Mary said. "All she's ever known is college and you. She needs to, spread her wings a little." "Broaden your horizons and spread your wings, huh?" I asked. "What else does she need to straighten?" "Maybe her legs?" "No need to be rude," said Mary. "But since you mentioned it, yes. Maybe she needs to try something new. Of course, it will benefit you in the long run." "Oh, how?" I asked. "Well, maybe she'll learn something that she can bring home to you," Mary said with a smile. "After all, when you leave for work, you probably get your share too, don't you?" "No, Mary, I don't," I said. "I work when I'm away. I usually work 16 hours a day on site. Like I said, I take my wedding vows very seriously." "Well, maybe you should be the one expanding your horizons," she said with a grin. "I take my wedding vows very seriously," I said, "and I trust Lucy to do the same." "I don't see any rings on your finger. Have you ever been married?" "Couple of times," she said. "Let me guess, your husbands caught you cheating, didn't they?" I asked. She shrugged. "Yes, so what?" she said. "No one owns me. I do what I want, with whoever I want." "Well, Lucy is married, and I expect you to respect that," I said. She grinned. "Yes, keep thinking like that," she said. By then, Jake and Lucy had returned from the dance floor. I stood up so Lucy could sit between Mary and me. I sat down, preventing Jake from sitting next to her. He looked unhappy, but I didn't care. "So Lucy said you're a welder," Jake said. "How much do welders make now?" $15 an hour. "Actually, I make over $35 an hour," I said. "More if you have to work underwater." "Did Lucy tell you that I paid for her college education?" "Are you paying off her student loan?" He asked. "No, she doesn't have student loans because I paid for her tuition," I told him. "I also bought her this new Toyota." "Damn, I didn't know welders made that much money," he said. "I guess I'm in the wrong profession. I bet you have a lot of women on your side when you go away, huh?" He asked, jabbing me with his elbow. No, I work when I leave, I said. I usually work 16 hours a day on site. As I told Mary, I take my wedding vows very seriously. I'm sure so, Jake said smugly. I didn't like where this was going, and these people were starting to really piss me off. I turned to my wife. Did you come by car today? I asked her. Yes, she said. Okay, I said, because I've had as much fun here as I can handle. I'm going home. I'll wait for you right behind me. I started to get up and accidentally spilled a nearly full ice-cold beer down Jake's pants, all over the crotch of his tan pants. Oh, I said, sorry about that. I think you should go home and change. He jumped up, furious, and seemed to want to hit me. You better do it well, buddy, I told him, because I will put your head in the sand when I get up. He saw the look in my eyes and stepped back. Smart decision, I told him. I turned to my wife. Are you coming? I'm right behind you, she said quietly. I noticed the look Mary gave me. Believe me, if looks could kill, I would already be dead. I walked out the door without looking back. Lucy arrived at the house a few minutes after me. Good for her, I thought. I grabbed a beer from the refrigerator and waited for her in the living room. She burst inside, her face red. What the hell did that all mean? She demanded. You have embarrassed me terribly. Did I disgrace you? I asked rhetorically. Are you following me or what? She asked. I shook my head. No. I really just wanted to grab a beer and was surprised to see you there with your work friends, I said, realizing that I had lied to her for the first time since I'd known her. If anyone had a reason to be ashamed, it would be me. Imagine what went through my head when I saw my wife, the love of my life, and my best friend, sitting there with some womanizer acting like stupid schoolgirl. And imagine how I felt when I saw you take off your wedding ring, like you're ashamed to admit that you're married to me. Her face softened and she sat down next to me. Of course not, she said. I just have to work with these people, and Jake is the lawyer I work with the most. And Mary, I asked, what role does she play? She's above me in the ranks, Lucy said. She instructs me, shows me how everything works. Does this include marriage advice? I asked, what do you mean? She asked, well, while you and Jake were dancing, she was telling me all this bullshit about how you need to expand your horizons and spread your wings, I said. I asked if that meant spreading your legs, and she pretty much admitted that you've already done that and will continue to do that. Be honest with me. Have you cheated on me? No, I didn't, she said, lowering her eyes. For some reason, she couldn't look me in the eye. Was she lying to me? I hope not, because you know that's the one thing I could never forgive, I told her. Well, Mary said that maybe you will find someone when you leave too, Lucy said. Is that so? No, I replied. We've known each other since 6th grade. Have you ever seen me be unfaithful to you even once? She shook her head. No, she answered quietly. I have never cheated on you, and I never intend to, I said. I love you too much to disrespect you and hurt you. Besides, when I'm away, I'm too busy working. I wasn't kidding when I told Jake that I often work 16 hours a day. I know, she said. I saw your pastelates. You see, I said, what do you think paid for your tuition, bought you that new car, allowed you to wear nice clothes all this time? And that's on top of paying all our regular bills. You know, I'm saving up to put a nice down payment on a house, so you can tell Mary to shove her shit up her ass and shut up about something she doesn't understand. You obviously didn't like her very much, Lucy said. No, I didn't like it at all, I answered. I don't like the crap she feeds you. Same with Jake. I don't trust any of them. Did you know she was divorced twice for cheating? Lucy looked at me in shock. How do you know this? She asked. She told me so herself, I replied. Seemed awfully proud of it. I have a feeling that she and Jake are up to something, and they want to drag you into it. You haven't done anything wrong, have you? No, Stan, I didn't, she said. Just what? I asked her. I love going with them, she said. Well, I like spending time with you, I told her. Do you think you can start spending some time with your husband? Of course, she said, throwing her arms around my neck. Sorry, it's okay, I told her. You know that I have only ever had 3 wishes in my life. Which, she asked. First of all, being married to you, I said. Secondly, become a better welder. And thirdly, have a family with you. We smiled and snuggled closer to me. Well, you already have the first 2 wishes, she said. Do you want to work on the 3rd one? Now I smiled. Let's go, I said. We rushed to the bedroom and spent the whole night making love. Everything seemed to calm down for a couple of months. Lucy stayed home on Fridays, and I tried to be more attentive and loving. I purposely didn't mention Mary or Jake again because I trusted Lucy to make the right choice. And then it happened. One Friday evening, I returned home to find the house dark except for a few candles on the dining room table. I smelled lasagna from the kitchen and thought Lucy had something special planned. I went into the dining room and saw that she had set our best china on the table. When I turned around, I saw her, my beautiful wife, in one of the shortest dresses I had ever seen. I loved looking at her legs, and she knew it. So she chose a dress that gave me a good chance to see her best features. The front of the dress was almost 2 strips of fabric that barely covered her beak up. Breasts, the dress was completely open at the back. She walked towards me and wrapped her arms around me, giving me a deep tongue kiss. The night already looked promising. "Do you like what you see?" she asked. I nodded my head. "Oh yes," I said, looking at her beautiful figure. "I'm glad," she said. "Tonight is going to be a very special night." "Why?" I asked. "It's a surprise," she said. "Go get yourself cleaned up and then sit down while I get dinner ready." I went to the bedroom, cleaned myself up, and changed my work clothes. When I returned to the dining room, Lucy had already served lasagna and even poured us a glass of wine. I loved Lucy's cooking, especially her lasagna, always soaked in cheese and filled with meat and mushrooms. "I don't know what's more tempting, you or the lasagna," I said as I sat down at the table. She giggled as she sat down in her seat. "Well, I hope you enjoy both today," she said with a smile. I started on the lasagna and it was delicious as always. I took a few sips of wine, not wanting to get too drunk before the sex I knew would happen later. After I finished everything, I felt a little strange. I tried to get up, but my head was so dizzy that I almost fell. I looked at Lucy in confusion. What did she do? I asked myself. I tried to speak, but it was very difficult. "What?" I started, but the next moment I was already falling to the floor. When I finally came to my senses, I found myself naked, tied to a chair in our bedroom. My arms were tied with zip ties to the armrests of the chair, and my legs were also tied to the legs with zip ties. There was some kind of device around my waist, and my manhood was sandwiched in a strange tube. What the hell was that? I asked myself. I was furious and screamed. Mary was with her. "What kind of crap is this?" I asked. "Release me, damn it, right now." "Sorry, honey," Lucy said. "Mary said it would be better this way." "Better for what?" I demanded an answer. "So you can see your wife expanding her horizons," Mary said calmly, and straightens his legs. "Was it your idea to drug me and tie me to this chair?" I asked. "Of course," said Mary. "Lucy said you would never agree willingly. So I gave her something to knock you out for a while. That way you can watch your wife get screwed and not be able to do anything to stop it." I looked at Lucy, angrier than I had ever looked in my life. "And you went through this crap?" I asked. "You know what that means?" "I'm really sorry," Lucy said, "but Mary said it was the only way. Believe me, please. It won't affect us in any way. It's just sex. I still love you." Mary said that's what most married men dream about. Well, I don't dream and never have. And yes, this will affect us very greatly. "I told you I won't tolerate cheating," I said. "And what is this thing you put on me?" "It's called a chastity belt," Lucy said. "It's designed to give me total control over you and show you who's boss in our marriage." I swear to God, I said to Lucy, I've never fantasized about this, and I promise you that. If you don't free me from this damn chair and take this thing off right now, everything will be over between us. "Please don't be like that," Lucy begged. "It's just for one night. I'll let you go when it's over." I shook my head. "You're not that stupid, Lucy," I told her. "Free me now." Mary came up to me with something in her hands. The next moment she put some kind of ball into my mouth, which prevented me from speaking. "You need to be quiet," she said, "and let your wife enjoy a real man or two." I shook my head, trying to stop her from inserting the gag into my mouth, but it didn't work. I tried everything I could to free myself from the chair, but I couldn't. Mary stood up and walked towards the bedroom door. Jake and another man from her office walked into the room and looked at me, chuckling. "Well, well," said Jake. "Is Cook ready for his initiation?" "Ready," said Mary, "but he's not very cooperative." "Is it true?" Jake asked. "This might help." He leaned back and punched me in the face. Then he hit again. "I've already seen everything in red light." "Don't hit him," Lucy screamed. "You promised you wouldn't touch him." "I owe him for ruining my pants," he said. "And now he's going to watch me have sex with his wife." With these words, he grabbed and tore Lucy's dress. "Take off your panties," he ordered her. I shook my head, but Lucy took off her panties and gave them to Jake. I watched as Lucy began to pleasure Jake while looking into my eyes. I was shaking with rage. Jake and Mary laughed as they watched me suffer. Your wife does a great job with this, Jake said. Another man watched while Mary recorded it all on a small handheld camera. Lucy did not stop there and began to satisfy the second man in the same way. I thought I was going to be sick watching this. You like watching your wife with other men, right? Mary asked, filming what was happening. Admit it, she said. I shook my head and continued to look at her with a withering gaze. After Lucy finished with the second man, Jake led her to the bed. This time for the main show, he said, glancing at me. I closed my eyes as Lucy moaned. Go ahead, she said. Take me. Anytime, Jake growled. Oh God, this feels so good, Lucy said. Better than your weakling husband, he asked. Oh yes, much better, Lucy replied as tears streamed down my cheeks. At that moment, whatever love I had for Lucy was gone. I've read stories where weak husbands get aroused by watching their wives have sex, but all I felt was hatred. I tried not to look at them, tried to concentrate on something else, but it was difficult. By then, Jake was having sex with Lucy as hard as he could while another man joined them. For the next hour, the three of them enjoyed doing everything they could while Mary recorded everything on camera. Well, that wasn't that bad, huh? Said Mary. Jake and the other man pushed Mary and Lucy aside. Make sure it's filmed, Jake told Mary. The next moment, two men urinated on me. I thought I was going to throw up. Lucy laughed as they peed on me. When they finished, Jake leaned towards me. If you say or do anything cuckold, I swear I will make your life hell, he said. From now on, your wife belongs to me. I will come whenever I want and do whatever I want. Understood? He stood up and waved to the other man. Come on, let's leave, he said. After they left, Mary came up to me. Don't even think about causing problems, she said. Jake wasn't kidding. It was child's play compared to what we could do to you. Got it? She stood up and looked at Lucy. Wait until I'm gone, and then let him go. If he starts showing off, call me. Lucy nodded in understanding. After Mary left, Lucy removed the gag from my mouth and cut the zip ties holding me to the chair. She then took the key from the nightstand and removed the chastity belt. She started to say something, but I interrupted her, got dressed, and went to the phone. What are you doing? She asked when I dialed 911. I may be a welder, but I'm no fool. I knew that what she and her accomplices did was extremely illegal, and I intended to put them behind bars that very night. Lucy was scared when she realized that I had called the police and reported the sexual boredom for assault and unlawful confinement. I grabbed Lucy's phone so she couldn't call Mary. I also took her keys out of her purse so she couldn't leave. She tried to take my phone and keys from me, but I was able to hold on to them and put them in my pants pocket. When I finished the call, I sat down and waited for the police. I knew they would want to examine me and take samples for evidence. Please don't press charges, Lucy begged. I don't want to go to jail. Trust me, this is the safest place for you right now, I said. You better get dressed. The police will be here any minute. You heard what Jake and Mary said, Lucy said. They're serious. You don't want to mess with them. Get dressed, I ordered. Lucy saw the expression on my face and knew better than to argue. She got dressed in silence, and I felt her phone vibrate in my pocket. I pulled it out and saw a message from Mary. Everything is fine, was written in a message from Mary. Everything is fine, I wrote. He's not too happy, but he'll accept it. I sent the message, hoping Mary would fall for the scam. I put the phone back in my pocket. By the time Lucy entered the living room, the police had already arrived. I opened the door and let them inside. One look at my face was enough to understand that things were bad. One of the officers took my statement while the other spoke to Lucy in the bedroom. The officer who took my statement called an ambulance and took samples, placing them in evidence bags. The second officer returned, and they talked for a few minutes outside the door before returning. When they returned, the second officer went into the bedroom and took Lucy out. Her hands were behind her back, and she was crying. Please don't let them arrest me, she begged. It was just supposed to be a joke. I shook my head and turned away from her. By that time, 2 more police cars had arrived, as well as an ambulance. A policewoman came to the door and took Lucy away. The policeman who took my statement said that she was arrested for illegal detention and drugging. We would like you to be seen at the hospital, he said. We need to take samples of your blood and urine to determine what you were drugged with. I thought about objecting, but decided not to. The more evidence against the bastards who did this, the better. You should probably file a statement of protection as well, he added. He gave me a card with the name of a lawyer from the local prosecutor's office and a phone number. I already called her, and she said she'll meet you at the hospital, he said. I thanked him and went with the doctors, who did a short examination on the way to the hospital. In the emergency room, they examined me, took samples, and cleaned me up. They gave me painkillers, which began to work when a woman in an elegant suit entered the room. "Stan Shipman?" she asked. I nodded. "It's me," I replied. "Mr. Shipman, I'm Linda Calloway," she said. "I am the deputy district attorney assigned to your case. How are you feeling?" "It's been better," I said. "I'm a little tired now. They gave me something to take the pain away." "Mr. Shipman, the police officers who brought you here briefed me on the situation," she said. "I have also been advised that the other woman and 2 men who attacked you have been apprehended and are currently in the county jail awaiting a hearing. I am asking that they be held without bail, but in truth, they are likely to be released. The company they work for has a lot of influence in the area, I'm afraid. That's why I decided to seek a protective order for you." "Thanks for that," I said. "Do you think this will help?" She shrugged. "I can't say for sure," she said. "Perhaps, but there is no guarantee." I nodded. "I understand," I said. "If it's any consolation, they will be in custody at least until Monday morning when their arraignment hearing is held," she said. "And then, I understand," I said. "I'm just an ordinary worker with no friends in high places. When it comes down to it, I'm on my own." "You have me, Mr. Shipman," she said with a note in her voice. "As long as you don't do anything stupid, but you might want to hire a divorce lawyer. Unless, of course, you plan to stay married to your wife." "No, I'm done with her," I said. She nodded in understanding. "I was told you would be kept overnight for observation," she said. "This is for the best, because now your apartment is a crime scene. It will take time to examine everything and collect evidence. By the way, do you have a weapon?" I shook my head. "No, I haven't," I said. "After my little brother accidentally shot himself in the foot with his dad's .22 pistol, he got rid of all his guns, and I decided it was better for me not to have one either." "Okay," she said. "Just so you know, we have home defense laws in our state, so you have the right to defend yourself in your home." "I'll take that into account," I said. "What about illegal drugs?" she asked. "Do you have this in your apartment?" I shook my head again. "No, I haven't. But I can't seem to say the same about my wife," I said. "Okay, I'll pass it on," she said. After she left, I felt myself falling asleep and woke up when I was moved to a separate room. After I was settled, they gave me more medicine and I fell asleep for the whole night. The next morning, after I had breakfast, my parents came to see me. They sat in silence while I told them everything that happened. My father was furious when I finished. "What are you going to do, son?" he asked. "I'm filing for divorce," I told him. He nodded in approval. "Well done," he said. "Is there anything we can do to help?" "I need the name of a good divorce lawyer," I said. "I know a few people," he said. "I'll see what I can find. I'll also need a ride home after I'm discharged," I said. "No problem," my father said. "Just call when you're ready. Until then, relax and don't do anything stupid." "You know me," I said. "Yes, I know," he replied with a smile. "That's why I say, don't do anything stupid." We all laughed, and they left after my mom hugged me. A little later, Lucy's parents arrived. We always got along, and they were like a second set of parents to me. I told them what happened last night. Both were shocked and embarrassed by what their daughter had done. "I think you'll file for divorce," her father said. I nodded. "Yes," I said. "I can't live with what she did." "I understand," he said, "and I'm really sorry. Maybe we can help with something," asked her mother. "If Lucy is released from prison, she will need somewhere to stay," I said. "The deputy prosecutor is getting a protective order for me, so she can't stay in the apartment." "She can stay with us," her mother said. "Thank you," I replied. We said goodbye and they left. The doctor came a couple of hours later and examined me. He announced that I could be discharged, and the nurses began filling out the paperwork. I knew it would take time, so I called my dad and told him. My parents arrived just at the time when all the documents were ready. After the nurse gave me instructions, she wheeled me in my wheelchair to the exit where my father's car was parked. They helped me get into the car, and we drove off. Soon we arrived at the house. My father helped me to the door, and we said goodbye again. "Remember," he said, "if you need anything, just call." "Thanks, Dad," I said. I entered the apartment and looked around. The police searched everything, and I knew that it would take time to return everything to its place. I immediately noticed that there was a message on the answering machine. I turned it on. "Corpse," the message said. Nothing more, no presentation, no explanation. I looked and found that the number was listed as private. Something in the message seemed familiar to me, so I listened to it a few more times. And then it dawned on me. It was not a live speech. I recognized the line from one of the old Rocky movies. specifically the one in which Mr. T was filmed. The person who sent the message recorded it and then played it back over the phone. A few minutes after I realized this, the doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and saw a rather young, attractive brunette standing outside. I remembered seeing her at the club the first time I met Jake. I looked around and didn't see anyone else with her. I got an idea and took my cell phone out of my pocket. I activated the camera and set it to record, then put it back in my pocket. I opened the door, leaving the chain in place. "Yes," I asked. "Mr. Shipman," she asked quietly. "It's me," I replied. "And you?" "Holly Brinkman," she said. "I'm working with your wife. Can I come in, please?" "Are you alone?" I asked. "Yes, I'm alone," she said. I closed the door to remove the chain and opened it again to let her inside. After she came in, I closed and locked the door. "How can I help you, Miss Brinkman?" I asked. "Just call me Holly," she said. "Okay, Holly?" I said. "So how can I help?" She handed me a brown envelope. "What is this?" I asked. "Open it, please," she said quietly. I opened the envelope and looked inside. I saw some photos, so I placed the envelope on the coffee table and excused myself to go to the kitchen to get a pair of latex gloves. I didn't want to risk leaving my fingerprints on anything. I went back and pulled out the photos and was shocked by what I saw. The photographs showed a man on his knees with his hands tied behind his back. This man was dead, and the photo shows that he was mutilated. Another photograph showed the same man, but from a different angle. I looked at Holly. "Who is this?" I asked. "It was my husband," she said as tears rolled down her cheeks. "His name was Brian. Did you report this?" I asked her. She nodded. "Yes," she said. "The police decided it was a suicide." "How?" I asked. "You don't understand," she said. "The firm we work for has friends at very high and low levels. They own a large part of the police force and several judges who are also on their pay." "I understand," I said. "Jake did this," she shrugged. "I don't know," she said. "Perhaps he ordered. So why are you still working at this company?" I asked. "I have no choice," she replied. "Let me guess," I said. "You're not just a legal secretary, right?" "It's true," she replied. "They did to us the same thing that Jake and Mary did to you. Only my husband went against Jake, and he paid the ultimate price for it. That is, in essence, you are just a girl of easy virtue for the company, aren't you?" I asked. She nodded. "Yes," she replied. "My job is to be accessible to attorneys and their clients." "What is Mary's role in all this?" I asked. "She's kind of like a madam," Holly replied. "She manages all of our missions, and she wanted to add Lucy to her staff," I asked. "Yes," she replied. I looked into the envelope and saw something else, a sheet of paper folded in half. I pulled it out and unfolded it. It was a note, but the letters seemed to be cut out of magazines and newspapers and pasted onto the paper. Such cheap work, I almost laughed, but controlled myself. "And shipment," the note began. "Back off, or it will be you," it read. I looked at Holly. "Have you read this?" I asked her. She shook her head. "No," she replied. "It was left at my apartment this morning with a note to be delivered personally to this address. Are you ready to tell the dog about this?" I asked her. She shook her head. "No," she replied. "I'd like to stay alive if you don't mind. You have no idea how evil these people are, especially Mary. How many people in your company know about this?" "Pretty much everyone above middle management," she said. I nodded. "I see," I said. "Okay, Holly, thanks for bringing this to me." "I'm sorry about all this," she said. "You seem like a really nice person. Lucy is lucky to have you." "Thank you for your kind words, Holly," I said. "Have a nice day," I added, opening the door for her. I watched her leave, made sure no one else was around, and locked the door. This message and voicemail changed the situation dramatically. I still intended to divorce Lucy, but these threats took things to the next level. I stopped the video and called Linda. Luckily, she wrote her personal number on the back of the card. "This is Linda Calloway," she said when she answered. I told her about the voicemail and the envelope that had just been delivered. "This changes everything," she said. "Okay, I want you to bring it to me right now." She gave me her address and then hung up. At that moment, I decided that I needed to leave this city for a while. I packed enough stuff to last me a few days and put it in the back seat of my F-150. I had another idea and took the chastity belt that Lucy had put on me last night. She also went to the truck. I had one idea and I wanted to test it. After I put some basic welding tools in my car, I called my boss to tell him what happened and asked for a leave of absence, which he quickly granted me. "Work's over, and you've got a ton of vacation days accrued, so take as much time as you need and figure it out," he said. "Thanks, boss," I said. I double-checked everything, locked the door, and drove off. I got to Linda's apartment in less than 30 minutes. She was shocked when she saw the photos and the note. I also have a video of our conversation with the woman who brought it, I said. It's quite revealing. Show me, she said. I took out my phone and turned on the video. Oh my God, she exclaimed when the video ended. That explains a lot. Can you leave me a copy? She asked. I handed her the phone so she could do everything she needed. When she finished, she handed it back to me. At that moment, I remembered that I still had Lucy's phone in my pocket. I took it out and handed it to Linda. What is this? She asked. This is Lucy's phone, I replied. I put it in my pocket the night Jake attacked me. I completely forgot about it until now. You might be able to find something in there. I will ask our specialist to check it, she said. Then she sat back and thought. Still, I think we should contact state or federal authorities. If what Holly said is true, I can't even trust our police. She looked at me and continued, What are you going to do? I'm going out of town for a while, I said. She nodded. Maybe you should consider witness protection. We could put you in the witness protection program, she suggested. Yes, of course, I said. So Jake and his buddies know exactly where I am. No thanks. Okay, she said. Just let me know where you'll be, okay? Okay, I said. I left without knowing where I was going. All I knew was that I needed to get away from this shit for a while. I stopped at the bank and withdrew as much cash as I could, then got back into the car and continued driving, all the while checking to make sure I wasn't being followed. All I could think about were the pictures of that poor man who was killed for not wanting to become Jake and Mary's cuckold. I knew that if I wasn't careful, I would end up like that too. It was already late at night when the idea came to me. I pulled into the bus stop and called. I hoped it wasn't too late, and luckily it wasn't. Yes, said a rough voice on the other end of the line. Dave, it's me, Stan, I said. Dave was an old friend. We worked together many times and got along well. Stan, you old son of a bitch. He said, What the hell is going on, buddy? I have a little problem and was wondering if I could stay with you for a couple of days. I said, Sure, mate, he said. Come on in. Just do me a favor and grab a couple 6-packs of beer, if you don't mind. No problem, mate, I replied. See you in a couple of hours. See you, he said before ending the call. Feeling better, I got on the highway and headed north. I noticed a store on the way north, so I stopped and bought a couple of packs of beer, as well as a styrofoam container and some ice to cool it down. I also heated up some coffee and decided to buy a couple of packs of cigarettes. I don't usually smoke at home, but I knew Dave smoked and thought he might like the... He allowed me to stay with him for a while, and I thought that at least I should thank him for this. Dave Brawlin was 15 years older than me and worked with my father. That's how we met. He stayed with us several times when he worked in our area and was like a big brother to me. I learned a lot from him while working in my father's workshop. It wasn't easy for him growing up. His father worked in the shipyards and eventually died from complications of mesothelioma due to constant exposure to asbestos. After his father died, his younger sister Beverly stayed at home to look after her mother until she died about a year ago of stomach cancer. I've known Bev for quite some time. She was a no-nonsense girl, attractive in her girl-next-door way. Of course, I never tried to court her, partly because of my friendship with Dave and my father, but mainly because I was already infatuated with Lucy. Bev and I got along well and were more like brother and sister, teasing each other about little things. I hadn't seen her for a long time, and I was curious what she was like now. Like me, Dave got married early but ended up getting divorced when he came home one day to find his wife with one of her coworkers. He never remarried, but he still goes out sometimes. He spends most of his time taking care of Beverly, who now lives with him. Beverly will, of course, say that she's looking out for him. I pulled up to Dave's house at 2:30 a.m., grabbed my stuff and a container of ice, and met Dave on the porch. I hope you have beer there for us, he said with a smile. Taking the pack of cigarettes that I offered him, he opened the door and helped me carry the rest of my things inside. I carried the ice container into the kitchen and saw a gorgeous blonde in a long t-shirt and short pajama shorts coming down the stairs. Who is this spectacular blonde here? I asked Dave. He laughed. You know who I am, dumbass, the blonde said. I did a double take and realized it was Beverly. She looked nothing like the awkward teenage girl I remembered. Her legs were toned, her breasts were a little larger, and her hair almost reached the middle of her back. Beverly, I asked in confusion. Is that really you? Yes, she said sarcastically. Why are you here so damn early in the morning? Did Lucy catch you cheating and kick you out or something? No, not really, I replied with irritation in my voice. Bev's face softened as she looked at me. Sorry, Stan, she said, noticing the bruise on my face. What happened? Are you okay? Not really, I said. That's why I'm here. Why don't you grab a beer and tell us what happened? I said, Dave. I nodded, took 3 bottles of beer, and went into the living room. I gave one to Dave, then turned to Beverly. Are you sure you can drink now? I asked her sarcastically. She smiled, gave me the middle finger, and snatched the beer from my hands. Spit it out, she said. What's going on with you two? This is quite awkward, I said. And what Beverly said, their adults were almost like family. So let's talk already. Okay, I said before telling them the whole story about Lucy, Marie, and Jake. I showed them the video I took of my brief meeting with Holly. They sat there, shocked into silence when I finished. Damn, Dave said, taking a sip of his beer. Do you think they know where you are now? I don't think so, I said. I didn't see any cars following me when I drove here. Well, luckily we're at the top of the hill, and we can see everyone coming up here. And I still have the gun I bought from your dad after Mikey's accident. You still remember how to shoot, right? Isn't it? I nodded. Yeah, but I haven't touched a gun since then, I said. My little brother Michael, or Mikey as everyone called him, accidentally shot himself in the foot with my dad's .22 caliber pistol several years ago. Mikey only suffered a minor injury and recovered quickly, but my father was so upset that he got rid of all the guns and never bought them again. It's okay, Dave said. I'll take you out to the backyard so you can get used to them again. Bev will help you too. She's become a pretty good shot. I looked at Beverly in surprise. She stood up and smiled at me with a sly smile. Does your father know you're here? Dave asked me. I shook my head. No, I said. I haven't told anyone where I am. I'll have to tell the assistant district attorney. You have to remember that I didn't even think about coming here until I was already gone. Okay, he said. I'll call your parents and let them know about this in the morning when the sun comes up. Don't use your cell phone if you can help it. In fact, it would be a good idea to turn off your phone and take out the battery in case there is some kind of tracker on it. Good idea, I said, turning off the phone. I removed the back cover and took out the battery. So will Lucy and her friends appear before the judge on Monday? Beverly asked. Yes, the hearing on the case is scheduled for Monday, I said. The DA is hoping the judge won't give them bail. But after what I heard from Holly, I'm not sure that will happen. Well, you can stay here as long as you need, Dave said. I have work starting in a week, and I'll be gone for about a week, but if you need to stay late, that's okay. How much time off are you planning on taking? I plan for 2 weeks, I said. I hope everything will be settled by then. Like I said, you can stay here, Dave said. Thank you. I appreciate it, I said. If there's anything I can do to help, let me know. Dave looked at Beverly, then smiled. I'm sure Bev will come up with a couple of cases, Dave told me. But you are our guest, and your parents always treated us like kings, so you can relax and enjoy the country air. Well, guys, this was fun, but I have to get up and make breakfast in a few hours, Beverly said as she stood up. I hope you like omelets and hash browns, because that's what I'm going to make, she added, looking at me. Breakfast of champions, I told her. Sounds great. She waved her hand and went upstairs. After hearing her bedroom door close, Dave and I went out into the backyard to smoke and talk. What's going on with her anyway, I asked. I thought she was already married and raising children. Well, she never met anyone she really liked, Dave said. She dated guys but said they weren't up to par. Didn't reach? To what? I asked. He looked at me seriously. Up to you, dumb bass, he said. She was always crazy about you. It can't be, I said in shock. Absolutely, he said. The only reason she didn't tell you was because of Lucy. She didn't want to be the reason you broke up. Are you serious? I asked. Like a heart attack, he said. Why do you think she's still in love with me? I asked. I hear her sometimes after she goes to bed, Dave said. She has a sex toy called Little Stan, and I heard her use it a couple of times. I heard her say your name a few times. That's too much information, I said. Dave smiled and took a sip of his beer. Well, as it is, he said. When did Beverly become a beauty? I asked. She was always a nice girl, Dave said. She just never advertised it. Besides, you only had eyes for Lucy, remember? Yes, I remember, I said. Look, between you and me, I wouldn't mind if you two got together, he said. Just do me a favor, okay? Which I asked. Don't break her heart, he said. I love my sister and I think you do too, if you think about it. I just don't want to see her get her hopes up, and then you and Lucy make up. It would destroy her. I shook my head. She is finished, I said. Okay, he said. Well, I have to go to bed. See you in the morning. He stood up, put out the cigarette in the can he had sat down and headed upstairs. I finished my cigarette and went to bed a few minutes later. I fell asleep as soon as my head hit the pillow. I woke up later when Beverly opened the door and shouted at me to rise and shine. I rubbed my eyes and noticed that it was 8:30. I went to the bathroom, did my morning routine, took a quick shower, got dressed and went downstairs. I looked at the ring on my finger as I got dressed and took it off. Throwing it on the dresser, I saw Beverly preparing breakfast in the kitchen when I came down. She was wearing a short t-shirt and shorts. Her long hair was pulled back into a ponytail, and her blonde bangs fell over her forehead. She was the epitome of beauty, and I wondered why I hadn't noticed this before. "She smells delicious," I said. She smiled. "Glad you like it, cowboy," she said. "The coffee is ready if you want it. You still love the butter pecan creamer, don't you?" "Of course," I said. "Do you have any?" "Oh yes," she said. "In the refrigerator. Help yourself. Just leave some for me and Dave." I poured a cup of coffee and added some creamer. I loved Southern butter pecans thanks to my dad. Dave got hooked on it when my dad brought some to work. "Sit down," she said with a smile. "I'll be done in a minute." I sat down at the table where Dave was already sitting, reading the Sunday newspaper. "Good morning," I said. He looked at me from behind the newspaper. "Good," he replied. "Anything interesting in the news?" I asked. "Yes. There is an article about some lawyer who was arrested on various charges," he said. "Read it," he added, handing me the article. The article didn't mention names or say anything specific. It was just regular news chatter, meaning nothing to those who didn't know the whole story. I snorted and handed the newspaper back. By this time, Bev had finished preparing breakfast and brought it to the table on a cart. "This is amazing," I said, taking a big bite. "Thank you, kind sir," Beverly said with a smile. "Glad you approve." We finished breakfast and Dave stood up after eating his portion. "I need to go into town and buy something," he said. "I'll be gone for at least a couple of hours. If you need to call the prosecutor's office, you can use your home phone." "Thank you," I said. Beverly handed him the list of things she needed, and he put it in his pocket. He took the keys and left. I looked at Beverly. "Do you need help putting away the dishes?" I asked. "It's not like I need help, but it will be nice," she said. "Thanks for asking." I stood up and helped her clear the table. She threw me a towel and began to wash the dishes that were already in the sink. "I see you're not wearing a ring," she said as she washed the plate. "Are you really going to divorce her?" "Yes," I said. I told her I wouldn't tolerate cheating, and I meant it. "Okay," she said with a slight smile. "Had you still have some dignity? How are you doing?" I asked, "How is everything going with you?" "Fine, I guess," she said, shrugging. "Is there anyone special in your life these days?" I asked. "Once upon a time there was," she said, "but he was already taken. Besides, I wouldn't be able to start a relationship anyway. Too busy taking care of my parents." "Yes, I heard," I said. "Yeah, well, we had to do it." She said after Dad died, Mom needed my help. I worked as a waitress to help bring in money since she only had Dad's retirement savings and Social Security. I worked until she was so sick she couldn't do anything anymore, and then stayed at home and looked after her. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said. "It's not worth it," she said. "I don't regret staying with her. I just hope that when I get to her age, someone will be there to help me." "So what happened?" I asked. "After Mom died, there was almost nothing left," she said. "We had to sell the house and a lot of her stuff. Between what was left of Dad's pension and 401k, we managed to pay all of her last expenses. There was some money left and Dave let me keep it because I was taking care of her. He promised Mom, which would allow me to stay here with him, and that's where I've been living since then. I've offered to pay for my college education, but I refused." "Why?" I asked. "I don't want to be in debt to anyone," she said. "I want to make it on my own if I can, so I stay here and work at McDonald's in town. I earn enough to cover my expenses and take some business courses in the evenings." "Well done," I said. "Yay, well, Dave has an idea to start a metal fabrication business, and he mentioned that I could do the accounting and stuff," she said. "Is he still talking about it?" I asked. "Yes," she said. "He does a lot of custom work for local people, custom barbecues, trailers, things like that. He gets good money for it. His dream is to work for himself, stay at home and do business in his workshop. Maybe he'll show you while you're here." "That would be great," I said. We fell silent and I found myself admiring her. For the first time, I realized how beautiful she was, and not just in appearance. She glanced at me briefly before saying something. "What are you looking at?" she asked. "I think I'm looking at the most beautiful woman I've ever met," I told her. I thought I saw a tear in her eye. Stop teasing me, she said quietly, looking down. I'm not teasing, I said. I can't help but admire you. You put your life on hold for your parents, refused Dave's offer to pay for college, and are working on your own education. I just wish I had noticed this sooner. Well, you were blinded by Lucy, so I can't blame you for that, she said. Yeah, you're probably right, I said. When she finished washing the dishes, she drained the sink, dried her hands, and turned to me. She used you, Bev said. I think you're right, I said. Of course I'm right, she said. I figured it out a long time ago. Why didn't you say anything? I asked. You wouldn't believe me, she said. I realized that most likely she was right. Damn, in your eyes she could do no wrong. She had you wrapped around her finger so tightly that you would do anything for her. All I wanted was to make her happy, I said. And what did this lead to? She said rhetorically. She got her degree, a new car, all sorts of trinkets and rags, all at your expense. And when she didn't need it anymore, she traded you for a new model. I'm glad she's in jail, because if only she were here right now, I would break her. Ass. I believe you would, I said. I just want to know one thing, she said, placing her hands on her hips. Which one? I asked. Are you going to give in to her tears and go back to her? She asked. I shook my head. No, I said. That ship has already sailed. It won't happen after Friday. Okay, she said, and in case you have second thoughts, remember this. She took off her t-shirt and threw it on the floor, revealing her bare breasts to me for the first time. I felt excited when I looked at her, but she didn't stop and pulled down her shorts and panties at the same time. She walked up to me and hugged me, giving me the deepest French kiss I had ever experienced. While we were kissing, she unbuttoned my shirt and took it off. She then took off my t-shirt and unbuttoned my jeans. Take me, Stanley Shipman, she whispered. This woman was very hot, and she turned me on. I started having sex with her. I love you, Stan Shipman, she said. I've always loved you. Don't ever forget that. I'll be your woman as long as you want. I love you too, Beverly. I said, I want to stay like this forever. It sounds good, but I don't think my brother will appreciate it, she said jokingly. I laughed and kissed her deeply. Then it dawned on me. I looked at her worriedly. I just realized I didn't use protection, I said. Don't worry, she said. I'm on the pill. Besides, I wouldn't mind if you got me pregnant. I'd love to have your kids. I will keep your word, I said. We better get ourselves organized before Dave gets back, she said. I need to lay out the meat for dinner. So why don't you go upstairs and take a quick shower, okay? I'll be up a little later. Okay, I said. What about meat? We love barbecues on Sundays, weather permitting, she said. You like venison, don't you? Yes, I like venison, I said. But it's been years since I've eaten it. Great, she said. I shot him myself with a .50 caliber flintlock. I even skinned him in the field with my own hands. You are a real woman, I said. A real hunter. I'm really impressed. I saw Dave's flintlock and knew it had to be at least 49 inches long. Did you charge it yourself? I asked. Of course, she said. The ball was patched with 100 grains of double F powder. I even cast the bullet myself. Damn, I said. Do you like fishing too? I love fishing, she said. I even hook worms and clean fish myself. Is there anything you haven't done? I asked sarcastically. I didn't rebuild the transmission on Dave's truck, she said. Not yet, although I helped him rebuild the engine. I'm definitely in love, I said, kissing her. She kissed back. Well, hurry up, run upstairs and take a quick shower, she said. I'll be up soon. I went upstairs and ran into the shower. A few minutes later, Beverly joined me. I felt excited again looking at her beautiful naked body. There's no time for that now, she said. Wait until night when we go to bed. By the way, you sleep with me now. My bed is bigger than the one in your room. Won't Dave be angry? I asked. No, she said. Besides, we're both adults and we agree. After the shower, we got dressed and went downstairs. I need to call the prosecutor's office and tell them where I am, I said. Beverly pointed to the cordless phone sitting in the cradle. Go ahead and use this phone, she said. I picked up the phone and called, almost forgetting that it was a long-distance call. Linda answered on the second ring. Linda Calloway, she said. Linda, this is Stan Shipman, I said. I'm calling to tell you where I am. Stan, thank God you called, she said. I started to worry. I see that you are calling from afar. Where are you? I'm visiting an old family friend, I said. I turned off my cell phone just in case. Okay, she said. I'll try to keep you up to date. I've already heard from the feds. It looks like they're investigating the firm where your wife works. By the way, I took the liberty of talking to an old friend of mine, who, by the way, is the best divorce lawyer in this area. I hope you don't mind. No, I don't mind, I said. Great, Linda said. She's expecting you to contact her tomorrow. I told her a little about your situation. If anyone can handle this case, it's her. Thank you, I said. I will do so. Linda gave me the information I needed and promised to let me know how the hearing would go before we ended the call. By this time, Dave had already returned, and I went out to help him bring in his groceries. By the way, he said, when we finished, I called your parents. They were very worried about you. I told them that you would be staying with us for a while. Thank you, I replied. That night, we grilled meat and enjoyed a nice dinner on their terrace. After dinner, everyone cleaned up together. Dave and I grabbed a beer and went out for a smoke while Beverly finished cleaning up. They've told me you'd be sleeping in her room, Dave said. Will this be permanent? I felt a little awkward discussing this with him. After all, she is his sister. I think so, I replied. Do you think so? He asked. Yes, that's right, I said. I just need to finalize the divorce. Do you love her? He asked. Yes, I do, I replied. Great, he said. It was about time you pulled your head out of your ass. He added with a smile. Look, Bev is a big girl now and can make her own decisions. She can take care of herself quite well. I just don't want her to get hurt. That's all. I would never hurt her, I said. I'm glad to hear that, he said. Welcome to the family, he added, extending his hand. I smiled and shook his hand firmly. Just don't make noise at night, okay? He said with a grin. I'll try, I replied, laughing. That night, after Bev and I made love in her room, I held her close and thought about our possible future together. I felt more content than I had in a long time. What are you thinking about? She asked quietly. About the future, I said. About? She asked. Yes, I replied. I mean, what do you want out of life? Where do you see yourself in 5 or 10 years? I know it's fashionable now for women to break through the glass ceiling and aim high, she said, but I'm not like that. I'm not looking for a career or anything like that. All I want is a faithful husband who will love me as much as I love him and a family that I can take care of. That's it, all. What about your classes? I asked. It's more for Dave, she said. When he opens his own business, he will need help. What about you? What do you want from life? I think I'm like you, I said. All I want is a faithful wife who will love me as much as I love her and a family of my own. I thought I found that with Lucy, but it didn't work out. What about your job? She asked. I love what I do, I replied. Sometimes I have to go away for a couple of weeks to work. Can you handle that? She laughed. Yes, please, she said. My brother is a welder, just like you, remember? I know what to expect. I can handle anything as long as I know you're coming home to me. I looked at her for a few moments before answering. I wish I had met you before Lucy, I said. Me too, she said, but what's done is done. We'll get through this together, okay? We're a team, and we can handle anything as long as we're together. I'll always be there for you, no matter what. I love you, I said, kissing her. And I love you more, she replied, hugging me. I fell asleep, feeling truly loved for the first time in a long time. The next day, Beverly got up before everyone else. After she made breakfast, she ran upstairs to get ready for work. She kissed me goodbye, reminding me that she had classes that evening after her shift. I'm usually home by 9:30, so you guys will have to fend for yourself, she said. Remember, no matter what happens, I love you and will always be there for you. I love you too, I said, kissing her back. She had no idea how much it meant to me to hear those words. What? Dave asked. Do I get a kiss too? She added with a smile. Beverly laughed and kissed him brotherly on the cheek. You two try not to get into trouble, okay? She said as she left. I need to call that divorce lawyer Linda recommended, I said, looking at my watch. Dave pointed to the phone and I picked it up and called. The law firm of Bernice Goodwin answered the friendly female voice on the other end of the line. I introduced myself and asked if Bernice was available, telling the secretary that she was expecting my call. Miss Goodwin is awaiting your call, sir, the woman said. 1 minute, please. I listened to music on my phone for a few moments before the other woman answered. Bernice Goodwin, she said. How can I help you? This is Stan Shipman, I said. Linda Calloway gave me your number and told me I should call you this morning. Oh yes, Mr. Shipman, she said. Linda told me a little about what's going on, and I've been waiting for your call. I usually prefer to meet in person at the first appointment, but I understand that's not possible this time. It's okay. We can do most of the work online these days. Please tell me your story and don't leave anything out. I spent some time explaining the situation, and she listened patiently. What are your expectations? She asked when I finished. I want to get as much as possible, I said. No alimony, and at least my share of our assets. I think we can do this, Bernice said. The fact that your wife is facing criminal charges should strengthen your case. I will need to look at your financial records. Do you have property, a house, anything like that? No, we live in an apartment, I answered. What about a lawsuit against Marie and Jake? She asked. The marital interference suits are allowed in this state. But I have to say, they usually go nowhere. You'd probably be better off filing a lawsuit for intentional infliction of emotional distress. Do what you think is necessary, I said. Okay, she said. I will look into this matter carefully and begin the process. Do you have an email? Yes, there is, I said. Great, she said. I will send you several documents. One of them is a contract, which you will need to sign electronically and return. The other is a to-do list. Complete it for me, please. I will also need you to pay in advance. You can do it today. Yes, I replied. Okay, I will send you these materials, and once everything is ready, I will hand over the documents for service, she said. Any questions? Not yet, I said. I gave her my email address, after which she transferred me to her assistant, who took down my credit card information. After the call ended, I turned on my laptop and checked my email. Sure enough, there was a letter from Bernice with 2 documents attached. I opened the contract, signed it electronically, and sent it back with notifications so I could see she had received it. There was also a document with tips on how to protect yourself financially. Thank God for online banking, I thought. It took me a while, but I was able to open a new account in my name, transferring half of our savings and current funds into it. I paid off and canceled Lucy's credit card, but left mine open as I had just paid the advance with it. It was early morning by the time I finished it all, and Dave took me into his workshop, where he was working on a trailer for one of the local farmers. I worked with him for a while and found it quite relaxing, just being occupied with something. Around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we received a call. Dave answered the phone in his workshop and handed the phone to me. This is your lawyer, he said. This is Stan, I said, picking up the phone. Stan, Linda Calloway is here, she said. Bad news. The judge gave everyone the minimum bail and released them. How is this possible, I asked. He's probably on their payroll, she said. Thankfully, the order of protection remains in effect, but I'm afraid it's nothing more than a piece of paper. It's best for you to stay put. Don't come to town. The feds are watching them, but I can't guarantee your safety. Great, I said. What should we do now? You stay where you are, she said. I'll do my best on that end. Call me if you need anything, okay? Yes, okay, I replied. We ended the call and I handed the phone to Dave. Bad news, he asked. Yes, I replied. The judge let them go. Damn, he said. I better call your parents and warn them. I think it's a good idea, I said. I should be the one to tell them that. Dave nodded and handed me the phone again. I dialed the number and my father answered on the second ring. Dad, it's me, Stan, I said. How are you, son? He asked. I'm fine, I said. I just wanted to let you know that the judge has released Lucy and her friends. You should probably be on your guard. I have a feeling they might be coming to see you to see where I am. Don't worry, son, he said. We won't tell them anything. Are you still at John Harrison's? The question surprised me because he already knew where I was. John Harrison was a retired foreman that my father and I had worked with in the past. After retiring, he and his wife moved to a location about 2 hours south of the city. And then it dawned on me, most likely Lucy and her friends were already there, looking for me. I decided to play along with this trick. Actually, I'm at a motel about 50 miles south of there, I said. Got it, he said. The main thing is that you are okay. I'm fine, I said, but I'm leaving here tomorrow morning. I plan to head east. Just let me know where you are. Okay, son, he asked. Yes, of course, I replied. Can I talk to Mom? She's busy in the bathroom right now, my father said. I listened and thought I heard some sounds in the background. Okay, I said. Tell her that I'm fine and that I love her. I'll tell you, son, said my father. I heard the tension in his voice and prayed that they were safe. See you soon, okay? Of course, Dad, I said, love you. And I love you, son, he said before hanging up. I looked at Dave and made another call. What's wrong, Stan? Linda said when she answered the phone. I think Lucy and her friends are at my parents' house, I told her. I said it, she said. I'll find a couple of FBI agents and head over there right now. Stay put. We ended the call and I handed the phone back to Dave. What's happening? He asked. I think Lucy and her friends are at my parents' house trying to figure out where I am, I said. Yes, I heard what you told your father, he said. Do you think they'll fall for the trick? I hope so, I said, at least for a few hours. But best, we have 6 to 8 hours if they go south to John's house, I said. Maybe I should leave and find a place to hide until this blows over. No, Dave said. We're all in this together. You stay put. I'll clean up a little, and then I'll go into town and talk to the sheriff. Don't go anywhere, do you hear? I nodded. A couple of hours later, he left the house and went to the city. After he left, Linda called again. Stan, you were right, she said. Lucy, Marie, Jake, and a couple of their thugs came there after the hearing. They tied up your parents and threatened them. They said they didn't reveal your whereabouts. We put everyone on the wanted list. They left one of their thugs here, and he is now in our cell. Of course, he doesn't say anything. Do you know where they're going? I asked. No, I don't know. But I don't think they believed your story, she said. Later, talk to your father. A few seconds later, I heard my father's voice on the phone. Stan, I don't think they believed the roost, he said. Are you okay? I asked. Yeah, we're okay now. But I think Lucy and her friends are heading towards you, he said. Why do you think so? I asked. I overheard Lucy speaking, he replied. Got it, I said. Tell Linda about this so she can call the sheriff here. I will do so, son, he replied. The next voice on the phone was Linda. Where are you? Exactly, she asked. I told her where I was and gave her directions. Do you think Lucy knows where it is? She knows, I replied. Okay, Linda said. Stay where you are. We will send someone as soon as possible. We ended the conversation and I headed back to the house. As soon as I left the workshop, I heard a familiar voice. It was Jake. Well, he said. Thought you could outsmart us, huh? Nice try, telling your parents you were heading south when you were actually heading north. Luckily for us, Lucy knew you were coming this way. Now get moving, he added, waving his pistol. Get in, he ordered, pointing at the black SUV. I sat in the back seat and saw Lucy looking at me with a smirk. Thought you could outsmart us, huh? She asked with a grin. This will end badly for you, Lucy, I said. The police will be here sooner than you think. It doesn't matter, she said. It will be too late for you anyway. You should have just agreed to the program, and now you will pay for it. Marie and Jake giggled at this. Jake ordered the driver to drive down to the creek at the bottom of the hill. When we got there, Jake opened my door and holding a gun told me to come out. So you're going to kill me, huh? I asked Lucy. She laughed. As they say, dead men tell no tales, she said. Jake and Marie laughed as the thug tied my hands with plastic zip ties behind my back. When he finished, he forced me to my knees. First of all, Jake said, always wanted to have sex outdoors. How about it, Lucy? Are you ready to give your soon-to-be deceased husband one last show? Something to send him off on his last journey? Why not, she said, undressing. Come here and take me, honey. Jake chuckled and pulled his pants down. Just thanks, Stan, she said. While you rot here in the creek, Jake will sleep with me every day. I will gladly spend your money and play the role of a grieving widow. He spread her legs and Jake began to have sex with her. The big man who was holding me chuckled. Enjoy, he whispered. This is the last thing you'll ever see. I turned my head away and refused to watch Lucy and Jake copulate on the ground. Personally, I was hoping that they would both be eaten by ticks. They would deserve it. I told you that Lucy would expand her horizons, Marie said. You might as well enjoy the show. This is the last time you'll get to see your wife. About half an hour later, Jake came inside Lucy. After he caught his breath, he stood up and pulled on his pants. I looked at Lucy. For what, I asked her. Why did you do this? She shrugged. What can I say? She asked rhetorically. He's richer than you and he's bigger than you. Besides, I don't want to be married to a welder for the rest of my life. I want a good life and Jake can give it to me. Are you two done reminiscing? Jake asked. We have things to do and it's getting late. He waved his hand at the thug who made me lean forward. Jake, meanwhile, walked over to the SUV and returned with a long sword. I think you know what happens next, old friend, he said. Don't worry, they say death is instantaneous. You won't feel a thing. Now pray to God, you bastard. I closed my eyes and said a silent prayer. I saw Jake's shadow and knew that he had raised his sword above his head. Then I heard the sound of a gunshot. Before my eyes, Jake's body collapsed to the ground. His eyes were open, but I knew he was dead. Another shot rang out and the thug fell. Marie tried to grab Jake's gun, but another shot rang out and she collapsed, screaming, in pain as she was shot in the shoulder. Marie looked around in fear and tried to hide behind Jake's body. I heard the distinctive sound of a four-wheeler in the background and realized that it was approaching us. I tried to see who it was, but all I saw was a cloud of dust as he approached. Then the vehicle came alongside and I saw long blonde hair flowing behind the driver. I realized it was Beverly. She stopped the ATV and jumped off, holding a hunting rifle with a telescopic sight in her hands. She pulled a large knife from her belt and cut the plastic tie binding my hands. Freed, I sat down and watched as she walked over to Lucy. She hit Lucy in the face with the butt of her rifle so hard that she fell on her back. "Don't you ever dare touch my man again, or I swear to God I'll blow your damn head off." Beverly screamed, "Did you understand me, bitch?" I said, "Do you understand me, bitch?" Lucy nodded slowly. She heard sirens in the distance, and Beverly went to the ATV and pulled out her flare gun. She pointed it at the sky and fired a flare to tell the police where we were. Soon we saw flashing lights coming towards us. "Are you okay, honey?" she asked, approaching me. "Now, yes," I replied. "You saved my life. I can never thank you enough for that." "Trust me, you will have your whole life to make it up to me," she said with a smile. We soon found ourselves surrounded by police cars. Dave pulled up in his truck and got out to see if we were okay. One of the sheriff's deputies called an ambulance and a coroner. "Are you okay?" Dave asked, approaching us. "Everything is fine now, thanks to Bev," I replied. "She saved my life." The sheriff took our testimony and supervised further actions. By then, an ambulance had arrived on the scene, and Marie and Lucy were being treated by paramedics. "She killed Jake and Ronnie," Marie screamed. "Aren't you going to arrest her?" "No," said the sheriff. "This is Dave's property, and we have a home protection law. Miss Brawlin had every right to protect Mr. Shipman's life. Consider yourself lucky she didn't kill you too." As I watched, sheriff's deputies handcuffed Lucy and took her away. The sheriff told me that she and Marie are facing charges of attempted murder and conspiracy to commit murder. After the police collected evidence and took the bodies, we were released. I rode the ATV back to the house with Beverly. "I thought you had class today," I said. "What's happened?" "Dave stopped by McDonald's and told me what happened," she replied. "So I left work and came home. I needed to make sure you were okay. I saw tire tracks on the grass and followed them to where you were. So I went up to the hunting tower that I installed, and well, you know the rest. When I saw what Jake was going to do, I just reacted. I'll catch up on classes, don't worry." "I'm not worried," I said. "I'm grateful, more than you can imagine." I picked up the phone and called Linda to tell her what happened. She was relieved to hear that I was okay. "After all this, we have all the cards," she said. "Don't worry, the company will fall soon." "I hope so," I said. Afterwards, I called my parents to tell them what happened. They were also glad to know that everything ended well. That night, I thanked Beverly again for saving my life. Marie recovered from her wounds, and both she and Lucy were put on trial for attempted murder and conspiracy to murder. They were found guilty and convicted of charges related to my original assault and unlawful restraint. Both received life sentences and faced new charges related to conspiracy and racketeering within the firm. I only saw them twice in all that time, once when Beverly and I testified and again when they were sentenced. Both times they looked terrible, and I couldn't help but smile. As a result, both of them would never see freedom again, and I was incredibly happy about that. Meanwhile, Bernice obtained a quick divorce, and because of the convictions, Lucy convinced the judge not to award her anything. She also received a hefty settlement from Marie, as well as from Jake's inheritance. By the time she finished, I was just overwhelmed with money. Of course, Bernice got her share, but I was very happy with my income. The firm also paid out a huge amount of money as part of the settlement, as its partners defended themselves against numerous federal charges, including racketeering and charges related to the mysterious deaths of 2 other men. As a result, the company was forced to close, and its partners ended up behind bars for life. All this happened over a period of approximately 6 months. By the time it was over, Beverly and I had enough to live on for years. I bought her a beautiful ring and proposed to her according to the rules. Getting down on one knee, she squealed with joy and showered me with kisses. A month or so later, we got married and spent a week in Las Vegas. When we returned, we sat Dave down in the living room and proposed to him. His eyes widened when we proposed the formation of Dave and Stan's Welding and Custom Fabrication. "Are you serious?" he asked us. "Absolutely," I said. Beverly pulled out her plan chart and showed him the business plan she had developed. After he had studied it carefully, he leaned back. "You know, I think this might work," he said. "By the way, I almost forgot," he added, reaching into his pocket. He took out the keys and handed them to us. "You know that lot on the south side?" "Yes," Beverly said. "What's wrong with him? Have you seen the new house on this lot?" He asked. Yes, she said. We thought you sold this place. No, he said. This is your wedding gift. From me and your parents, he added, looking at me. It is brand new and equipped with all modern amenities. The property and house are registered in your name. Your father and I have already moved all your belongings from the apartment there, except for everything related to Lucy. Wow, I said. I don't know what to say. Sure, I could have afforded to build a custom home, but this new home looked great and was just as durable as a regular one. I definitely wasn't going to complain about this gift. I knew this place had to cost them over $150,000. Say thank you, partner, he said, extending his hand. I smiled and shook his hand firmly. We embraced in a strong man's hug. Are you sure you'll be okay without us? Beverly asked. I wouldn't want you to be alone. I'll be just fine, he said. Besides, I'll finally be able to get a good night's sleep. I'm tired of hearing you two moan at night. We celebrated that night, and I called my parents to thank them for the gift. Later that evening, Beverly and I had our housewarming party in our bedroom. Yes, I thought, as we lay in each other's arms, everything will be wonderful. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think. Click to the next one. 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 Click to the next one.